Everyone probably knows that not all cars are created equal, and there are some models out there you should steer clear of. So with that said, we found some cars, trucks, and SUVs that you should be aware of buying unless you know they will be reliable or not. Despite this, there are some vehicles that are just plain lemons that you should avoid altogether. Check out these 15 cars you should never buy. Range Rover Sport Diesel. Unfortunately, the Range Rover has never had a glowing reputation for solid reliability. One look at the Consumer Affairs website will tell you this with nearly 300 one-star reviews. There seems to be a lot of problems with the Range Rover, including the transmission, blown engines, turbos under 100,000 miles, and trouble with the air suspension failing often at unexpected times. There were even reports of customers driving around and smelling fuel inside the vehicle, but technicians weren't able to track down the source. The model years to watch out for are the 2002, which was recalled for a potential short circuit issue, 2004, which had electronic stability program problems and faulty in-dash TV systems, 2005 models with gearbox problems and brake fluid leaks, 2009 models with leaking windshields, and 2012 and 2013 models with electronic issues which increased a risk of fire. Fiat 500X. The Fiat 500X is actually a weird retro-designed road-based SUV. We say weird because it doesn't have a four-wheel drive option like most other SUVs. If that doesn't turn you off about this one, when owners were polled about their Fiat 500X models, it turned out that 33% of 500Xs had problems that included bad bodywork from the factory and some engine and non-engine electrical issues. It looks like owners didn't have to pay anything for repairs and the factory warranty took care of the bills. But who wants their SUV to sit in the shop for repairs, especially when it's new? The 2016 model year was the worst rated year for this vehicle with drivetrain problems. Volvo XC90. Volvo was known for making one of the safest cars on the road, but when it comes to the 2004 and 2016 Volvo XC90, it looks like there might have been some manufacturing problems. The 2004 models were notorious for having a bunch of electrical problems, transmission defects, and some engine troubles. The 2016 model, which is the second worst model year, had strange phantom electrical problems where the engine would suddenly lose power while you were driving. Among other problems were premature tire wear, transmission failures, and trouble with the auto braking system failing after just 11,000 miles. Watch out for problems with model years 2005 and 2016 as they were the worst rated vehicles for electrical problems. Nissan Xterra. The Xterra was produced from 2000 until 2015. While it seemed like a reliable vehicle, the 2005 model had a serious problem with the transmission where an internal radiator leak would cause coolant to go inside the transmission. Because it was an internal problem, the owners wouldn't know what happened until the transmission went out completely. The model year that was severely affected by this was 2005, where thousands of failures were reported. You would think the factory would pin down this problem, but in the following year, more transmission failures were reported from the same problem, and then again in 2007 and 2008, where someone finally figured out what was going on. The average cost for this repair was around $4,000 to replace the entire transmission. Jeep Renegade. Jeeps might seem like they are super reliable machines, and everyone loves some Jeep four-wheel drive action. But the 2015 Jeep Renegade had a very large volume of complaints for such a new model, especially when compared to other SUVs in the same class. The biggest problems and complaints for this model were squealing brakes after having just 3,000 miles. There were also a lot of problems with the 9-speed automatic transmission, with hard and odd shifting points, sudden shutdowns, and sluggish acceleration after just 5,000 miles. There were also complaints that the engine wouldn't start or turn over and acted like the vehicle was simply dead after 5,000 miles. These problems continued through 2016 and 2017, although much less. Dodge Grand Caravan. When it comes to the Grand Caravan, we need to take into consideration that the vehicle has been in production for a long time. However, there seemed to be a massive amount of complaints starting with the 2005 model year. In 2011, the vehicle ranked worst for electrical problems, and especially the power door locks suddenly not working. But it seems that the scariest problem with these vehicles were the braking systems. The 2008 Grand Caravan had premature brake failure after just 30,000 miles, and the 2010 model had problems where the brakes were wearing out prematurely. The next year saw a problem with engine electronics and the vehicle not starting or hard to start. Problems continued to plague the Grand Caravan over the next several years, but nothing like the previous models. Mini Cooper. The Mini Cooper is really a cool-looking retro car, and in the 2003 movie The Italian Job, we got a look at some cool stunts with the trio of these cars. But all is not fun and games when it comes to the reliability of this vehicle. 2005 seems like it was a bad model year for a lot of manufacturers, and the Mini Cooper was one of these. If you had one, you could count on the transmission failing at 100,000 miles, and the engine would also fail, where maybe owners were trying to get too fast, too furious with their Cooper. There were also a lot of complaints of water on the floor, which likely came from a broken heater core and shorted out the main electrical harness. The 2006 Cooper had overwhelming complaints of the power steering fluid after just 89,000 miles. BMW X5. BMWs are pretty nice cars, and they've been building cars for a very long time. However, every vehicle manufacturer will run into some problem with a particular model once in a while. We're talking about the 2008 to 2011 X5. The 2008 model had a problem with water leaking inside after 36,000 miles, and the average cost to fix this problem was $10,000. However, the most reported problems came on the 2011 X5, where customers complained of the engine stalling while driving and the engine overheating. And this was just after logging 60,000 miles on the car. Ford Fiesta. This car has been manufactured for quite some time, so it wouldn't be a surprise to hear there are some complaints from owners out there. However, there were also years of this particular model which anyone should be aware of. The worst year seems to be the 2013 model, with an overwhelming amount of transmission failures. In fact, the power shift transmissions on this model year are almost guaranteed to fail after just 65,000 miles. The problems begin with jerking and shuddering, and then just giving out completely. How bad is the problem, you might ask? Well, there is currently a consumer lawsuit against Ford Motor Company because there are so many complaints. With that in mind, buyer beware. Jaguar X-Type. This company makes a pretty nice car when it comes to the Jaguar, but there are some models to be aware of when looking for one. The worst models are the 2014 XF, 2002 X-Type, 2000 S-Type, 2008 S-Type, and the 2003 X-Type. On the 2002 X-Type, the transmission would fail after just 87,000 miles, and it would hit you hard in the wallet with an average cost of $6,500. The 2004 XJ had a bit of a real scary problem in that it would try to accelerate while braking. The most reported problem model year was the 2016 XJ for the in-control apps and system not working. Cadillac SR6. Cadillacs are fairly nice luxury cars for the money, but they are also not without their problems as with any vehicle manufacturer. Luckily for Cadillac owners, the engine and transmission would seem reliable. The biggest problem would come in the 2010 model year with complaints of water inside the headlights. This would short out the headlight, which caused a big problem, especially if driving in the rain at night. Interestingly enough, there was also a recall on the V6 engine model where owners were not using the higher octane fuel that was required, causing engine damage. However, we're not sure if this falls under a manufacturer problem, as many early American muscle cars also had high-octane fuel requirements. Mercedes-Benz E350. When it comes to Mercedes, you're not likely to find a lot of problems with these cars. However, the 2006 E350 had a lot of complaints about engine problems. The balance shaft in the engine had some manufacturing defect, in which the entire assembly would have to be replaced, costing the owner $5,000. This also happened at an average of 85,000 miles. Other complaints were with the 2007 model leaking gas when the tank was full, and bubbles appearing under the paint clear coat. Not what you would expect when buying a Benz. Hummer H3. First introduced in 2005, the H3 was the smaller of the human models and was built by GM as a traditional SUV. You could also get the mid-size pickup model called the H3T. It had a 3.5-liter straight 5-cylinder engine, but in 2007 the engine was updated to a 3.7-liter LLR engine. The biggest complaint about the 2006 model year was the pass lock system. An antenna located at the entry point of the ignition lock cylinder reads the transponder data from the key and sends a code to the pass lock control module, which allows you to start the engine. This would fail because of a faulty ignition switch. Cost of repair was only $500, but there were a ton of complaints about the anti-theft system. Nissan Pathfinder. The Pathfinder makes it on our list with a not-so-surprising problem with the 2005 model year having the most troubles. The major issue was that the coolant would leak into the transmission. This was an obvious problem with the internal transmission cracking or splitting, allowing coolant to be pressurized into the trans. Since it was all internal, you probably wouldn't know this was happening until after the transmission started to act funny, or left you stranded somewhere. Trouble would show up just after 100,000 miles, so at least that was a bit of a plus. Still, if you are looking at this model, then make sure the radiator transcooler has been replaced. Ford Explorer. This vehicle has been in production for a long time, and for the most part, it's been pretty reliable. However, the 2002 Explorer had the most complaints and was related to the worst year due to failure and low mileage, and the high cost of repair. In automotive circles, some mechanics call this the Ford Exploder because the transmission would start to slip, lunge unexpectedly, and just blow up altogether. The problem continued with the 2004 and 2006 model year. So be careful if you're looking for a family SUV in the Explorer and have the trans checked. We hope you enjoyed the video. Is there some vehicle that we missed here? Let us know in the comments which one you think is the worst. If you liked the video, click on the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you will be the first to know when we release a new one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.